One of the very first countries we ended up fighting as a young nation was the Barbary pirates. Why? Was it because of Israel, a, a modern state that didn't exist at that time? No, no. I know it was because of all our military bases in the Middle East, right? Oh, wait, we didn't have any? Oh, okay. Gosh, was it because we were going over and oppressing the Muslim people? Was that it? No, that wasn't it either. Oh, gee, what was it? We know exactly what it was because the head of the Barbary states told the U.S. president at the time, it's because you're infidels. You're infidels, and our prophet says we can attack you. That's why. They didn't need any other moral justification. They didn't need any of the greater casus belli. That was it. We're starting to see more of this now where elements of the right are now standing up and not just criticizing American foreign policy, right? Not just criticizing Israel. But now all of a sudden we're seeing they're coming out and they're defending Islam. Now, maybe you're going to give Tucker a break on this one. He says, no president should mock Islam. Tucker Carlson blasts Trump's Easter post threatening Iran. Now, maybe a reasonable person can say, hey, look, Nick, I don't like Islamism or whatnot, but I thought President Trump's post was unreasonable. Fair enough. But this isn't the only time Tucker has kind of like been on this bent, right? Tucker is repeatedly bringing in people to suggest that the Islamic world is far nicer to Christians than even Israel is. Now, I've been to parts of the Islamic world, I've fought in parts of the Islamic world, and I've been to Israel. And I can tell you, anybody that thinks that the Islamic world is nicer to Christians than Israel either hasn't been to these countries and is completely talking out of their rear, or they have an agenda. Because this should not be difficult. The vast majority of Islamic countries have very, very specific rules with respect to how religion is to be treated in their countries. And guess what? It doesn't include religious freedom. You're not allowed to visit the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. Why? Because the Muslims control it. The Jews let the Muslims control it, and they sit there with AK-47s. And God help you if you want to be a Jew or a Christian and visit that place and potentially pray. You can visit the Wailing Wall under Jewish control, regardless of what religion you are. They ask you to be respectful, but they don't restrict your activities the way that they do on the Temple Mount, where the Muslims control. Not to mention the fact that this absurd notion coming from Tucker Carlson that, oh, there's a lot more Christians in Qatar than in Israel. You know what he bases that off of? He bases that off of the fact that in a lot of these Arab countries, especially in the ultra-rich Gulf states, what do? They import a foreign population in order to do all the manual labor. And where do a lot of them come from? Well, they come from places like the Philippines. And in coming places like the Philippines, which are predominantly Catholic, right? They end up being able to set up little churches within this enclave, within these ghettos where the foreign workers are allowed to live. But Qatar also has very strict rules. If they were to go out there and try to establish a church just in Qatar proper, they wouldn't be allowed to do that. If they wanted to evangelize or pass out Bible tracts, they wouldn't be allowed to do this. And Tucker knows this. And in fact, when Tucker and Huckabee got in this fight with one another, and Huckabee was pointing some of this out, Tucker used as his references for his points Wikipedia and the government of Qatar. Now, look, I'm not asking you to be in love with Israel, and I'm not asking you to hate Qatar. But this idea that the Islamic world is generally more friendly, more accepting, it's not true. And it's not just true today, it hasn't been true since the beginning, right? When Islam first broke out of the Arabian Peninsula, it was through the sword, it was through conquest. And if you lived under Muslim rule, yeah, they would allow you to stay, especially if you were a person of the book, a Jew or a Christian, they would allow you to live as a Jew or a Christian, but you had to pay an additional tax. In fact, for a while there was something of a scandal of Muslim leaders not allowing Jews and Christians to convert to Islam because they wanted the tax money that they couldn't get from the Islamic population. So once again, this whole rewriting of history to where now all of a sudden we're not just supposed to be skeptical of foreign policy or ask reasonable questions about foreign influence coming from any country into the United States. No, now we have to defend Islam. Why? Well, maybe this is it. Because it's not just coming from Tucker, by the way. This is coming from other elements on the right. It's coming from Candace Owens. It's coming from Nick Fuentes. Even perhaps Andrew Tate said it best. Andrew Tate, when he was asked why he chose Islam over Christianity, he says, well, I want to fear God. He goes, God is the only thing I fear. And when I'm in the Middle East, when I'm in a Muslim country, I fear God. Which is understandable because Muslim countries take their faith very seriously. And they take mocking of their faith very seriously. They don't have religious freedom. And so Tate said, I want to fear God. Tucker Carlson also pointed out when he was kind of defending Sharia law and Muslim culture, he was saying, well, gosh, I look at these Islamic cities and they're doing great. By the way, they're not. But on the surface, they probably look like they're doing well. He goes, and then I look at Western cities and it's just degeneracy, which by the way, is not a bad argument. I look at Western cities and I see degeneracy. But the question is, what do you chalk that up to? Well, if you chalk it up to wokeism, if you chalk it up to leftism, well, that's a fair critique of a lot of Western cities. It's a fair critique of a lot of Western culture. But am I supposed to believe that the solution to that is Sharia? Am I supposed to believe that the solution to that is Islam? But think about it for a second. When people on the right are criticizing the left by telling them, you idiots, I can't believe you're saying queers for Palestine. They throw you off of buildings in Gaza. They would kill you over there. You would not be allowed to live the way that you do in the West. Why don't you respect the West? Well, these elements of the right hear that argument and go, that's a pretty good argument. Yeah, you're right. You're not allowed to do a bunch of degenerate pride parades where people are exposing themselves to children in the Muslim world. You're not allowed to do that in the Muslim world. But yeah, you're right. You know what? If you're a young man right now and you see wokeism, feminism, all that degeneracy, if you see that as your enemy, because let's face it, the woke left has just been degrading men nonstop for decades now, especially if you are a straight white Christian man. Oh my gosh, you are the villain in every woke parable. And so they look around and they get told constantly, I'm a fascist, I'm a racist, I'm a sexist, and they're looking at this going, well, you know what? If that's who you hate, if the people oppressing me hate those things, well, then maybe those are the things I'm supposed to be. And then they look at Islamic culture and they look at Sharia and they're like, you know what? Say what you want about Islamic culture. You know what they don't have any of over there? Feminism or wokeism. And so the right looks at that and goes, okay, I don't agree with everything that you guys do, but at least I don't see wokeism and feminism. And so some elements of the right decide, well, we can work with Islam. Here's the problem that I think both sides are making right now, and it's actually pretty significant. Both the left and these elements of the right are making one major fatal flaw when it comes to Islam, and that fatal flaw is their own arrogance. The left thinks they're using Islam because one of two things is going to happen in their minds, right? They're going to let all these people over, and then a bunch of Islamists are going to just realize what nice, wonderful, egalitarian people leftists are, and they're going to convert. They're going to be so grateful for the largesse that they've given them through government spending and welfare programs and everything else that they'll have no alternative but to just embrace wokeism. But it doesn't happen. It never happens. You're seeing this in the places where they get a critical mass, whether it be in the continental Europe, whether it be in the UK, whether it be in certain elements within the United States, whether it be in Canada. They're not interested in assimilating because the religious faith tells them to go out and proselytize one way or another. And the people on the right go, no. They're only doing this. They only do the things that they do. They only attack the United States because of our evil foreign policy, right? That's the narrative. That's the narrative coming out of the libertarian side. And that's the narrative coming out of this element on the right with Tucker Carlson, with Candace Owens, with Nick Fuentes. And look, here's the deal. If you want to criticize American foreign policy, I am right there with you, baby. Let's sit down, pull up a chair and a glass of bourbon, and I will go ahead and just write you a book on all my problems with U.S. foreign policy. But this absurd notion that the only reason the Islamic world has a problem with the United States is because of our foreign policy is just that. It's absurd. One of the very first countries we ended up fighting as a young nation was the Barbary pirates. Why? Was it because of Israel? A modern state that didn't exist at that time? No. I know it was because of all our military bases in the Middle East, right? Oh, wait, we didn't have any? Oh, okay. Gosh, was it because we were going over and oppressing the Muslim people? Was that it? No, that wasn't it either. Oh, gee, what was it? We know exactly what it was because the head of the Barbary states told the U.S. president at the time, it's because you're infidels. You're infidels, and our prophet says we can attack you. That's why. They didn't need any other moral justification. They didn't need any of the greater casus belli. That was it. And at that point, they were strong enough to take on the American Navy until, of course, the hulls of Montezuma, as the song in the Marine Corps hymn goes. So when they had the strength to attack Christians, when they had the strength to attack and conquer and occupy and colonize, they did. And now they don't. And so what do they do now? Well, you can go look at the documents from the Muslim Brotherhood in the United States where they clearly articulate that the jihad of the womb, that their job is to come over here and to be good citizens until they can reach critical mass, but their whole job is to play the numbers game. Why? Because, well, in representative governments, numbers matter. And once they have a critical mass within numbers, they take over. They don't assimilate. Their job is not to swear allegiance to the United States Constitution or the principles which inform the Declaration of Independence. That is not their first allegiance. Their first allegiance is to Islam. And Islam is incompatible with the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, Christianity, and the various philosophies which actually informed our government. It's just incompatible. This is not me being mean. This is not me being racist or xenophobic. This is me doing something that both the right and the left don't do with Islam. You want to know what it is? It's me taking them at their word. say, I don't do what the left does and treat the Islamic world like their children. I don't do what the right does, or elements of the right, and buy into this narrative that the only reason they're attacking us is because of our foreign policy. This is about global conquest in service to Allah and the Prophet. Of course it was, because it's right there in the Quran and the Hadith. It's a proselytizing religion, but it's also a proselytizing comprehensive worldview that insists on its way and can proselytize through the sword. So all of the people, the Tucker Carlsons of the world, who feel perfectly safe in these environments right now because the United States has such an overwhelming military and economic presence in the world. They feel safe right now because the Islamic world knows they can't go toe-to-toe with the United States. Iran just went toe-to-toe with the United States and Israel, and what happened? Their Navy was sunk in less than a week. Their Air Force was down in a few days. Like, their capacity to launch effective strikes was eliminated almost overnight. They can't compete with the West militarily or economically. So they compete in the ways they can. They conduct the asymmetric wars the way they can. And so this is the big mistake. This is where both of them are going to lose out. Because Islam, the Islamists, they are more than happy to work with the left in order to achieve their objectives, just like they did in Iran in 1979.
If you have a 401k or an IRA, please listen. Gold is at record highs. What many people don't know is this. You can move part of your retirement money legally and without tax penalties into physical gold you actually own. Alpha Omega Gold helps you do this through a gold IRA. Your gold is real. It is stored safely. It is in your name. Learn more at ao.gold/stand. Alpha Omega Gold is our sponsor, and they proudly stand with Israel.